Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Talking Football podcast. I'm delighted to say we're joined this week by much loved, much travelled goalkeeper John Hillcoat. John, how are we doing?
I'm absolutely brilliant, Derek. Thanks very much for asking me on. I really appreciate it.
Oh, no, it's great to have you on. What a career. Plenty of stories, I'd imagine, John, as well. Before we begin, I know coronavirus, we're sort of coming out the end of it. You and your family, what have you, you been okay, or have you been affected by it all?
Well, there's been a couple of people who have sadly lost their lives. However, the majority of people have, worked on and basically just went up, got about their business and got through it, really.
Yeah, it's the only thing you can do. Hopefully
Absolutely.
We're nearing the end of it. Your career then, John, playing football growing up. Did you always want to be a goalie?
I did actually, which was pretty weird because it was a wee fat kid that get thrown in goals. So, I was never fat. I was a wee skinny runt. But, I was always drawn to being a goalkeeper for some bizarre reason because it didn't really run in my family as such. My dad played a wee bit, when he was in school, etc. But, I just basically wanted to be a goalkeeper and that was it. There was no any, oh no, I fancy being a left back or anything like that. There was nothing like that at all,
Yeah.
As soon as I can remember, as far as back as I can remember, I had it was all gardening gloves on that you used to get, and like with the waffle like grips on it, like the table tennis back grips and stuff like that. So that was me growing up, always wanted to be a goalie.
Yeah. Did you have any? Was there any goalies that you maybe watched in telly or something that you went, oh, I want to be like him, sort of thing?
Probably not. Actually, it was just one of the things that I just got into. When I was growing up, I grew up in Linwood, and I've got 4 sisters and a brother. And my dad was a Janny, so he was a Janny at Linwood High School, and it was pretty good because it was pissing the rain and stuff like that. We could get in the gyms and we could get a game of 5-a-sides going and stuff like that. And I got the mats out and we would do all that kind of stuff. And I was always drawn to be in the goals. When I was small, and I still am fairly small for a goalie at the moment, but it was I just loved it. I just absolutely loved it.
Yeah, absolutely. So did you guess you played with the school and that sort of stuff growing up?
Well, my primary school was East Fulton. And It's funny because I was talking to my first football manager the other day, and it was a woman called Flora Smiley, and she ran the football team. It was always the PE teacher or it was the Janny that ran the school teams when I was kind of growing up, and it was Mrs. Smiley that got the team up and running. And it was one of the times where you would play all the local clubs and all the schools, and you would get beat 15-20 nothing and stuff like that, but it was on the gravel, on the black blaze or the red blaze and stuff, and you went back with your knees all skint, and your mum threw you in the bath with the Dettol in the bath, and all that kind of stuff. All the stuff you can't remember, Derek. You're probably too young for that, mate.
No, I remember playing the black ash and all that sort of stuff. I mean, I played as a goalie myself at the school.
Oh, is that right?
Played in the ash, but I think I had a tantrum one time because I wanted to score goals, and that was my goalie career.
And that was you done. Aye, absolutely brilliant. So that was it. So East Fulton, and then I went to the Boys Brigade, and again it was a Linwood thing, and again it was a pumping every week. You're playing in the big goals, it's pitching the rain, and you get puddles in the middle of the goal, and you're getting beat 15-20 nothing and stuff like that. But it's a good grounding, That's the way I look at it. For if you're gonna go on and play the game at any kind of level, then I think it's important, it's imperative that you actually you've got to experience that kind of stuff, because the kids nowadays just do not experience that.
Yeah. Started at St Mirren as a YTS in '87. John, was that your team growing up based in?
Well, when I was a boy, my brother-in-law Matthew used to take me to Ibrox, used to take me to Rangers, and in the late '70s, early '80s, and I can remember going to Ibrox, and it was just when the old stadium was away, and it was a new one getting built, and the first things I can remember was walking into the stadium and the colours, the stands and the smell of the like bovrils and pies and stuff like that, and it was something that I've never really experienced before. Got to like watching a game under the lights and really enjoying it. Yeah. But I grew up, as they say, and obviously you get the Rangers and Celtic thing, the bigotry, especially, in the west of Scotland. Yeah. And I grew up and became an adult, and I now support St Mirren. So that's my club. So it was quite fortunate when I did become an adult, 16, 17-year-old, that was my first club.
Yeah. And of course, that year you joined it, they won the Scottish Cup, didn't they?
They did.
When Ian Ferguson scored in, that must have. What was it like in and around the club at that point? It must have been quite good.
Well, I left straight for school, and in that time, my boys' club was Renfrew Waverley. It was a really, really good, staunch boys' club, and there was a lot of players at that time who were signing S for them for Celtic and Rangers and Aberdeen and all these clubs. And I was a late developer, and I never actually trained with any senior club when I was growing up. And Campbell Money, who was the first team goalie at the time, he invited me. He came to train Renfrew Waverley and invited me to Love Street to train on a Monday night. And it was no days when, called the old Rangers or Celtic end, and there was a big bit of grass at the end of it. And myself and Craig Nelson, who went on to play for Airdrie and Hearts and these clubs, had a really, really good career. And the two of us used to go there on a Monday night, and Campbell used to absolutely batter us to the point that we were spewing up, and that was the olden days, and it came to a point when Alex Smith, who was the manager, he says, look, we need a young goalie, we're going to bring a goalie on in the YTS, and so Campbell, it's your choice basically. So it was between myself and Nelly, and Nelly was bigger than me and was more developed, etc. Just in some ways, no, obviously other ways, but he went to Airdrie, and and Campbell took me to St Mirren. And I can remember my first training session was with the first team, because I think one of the goalies was injured.
Yeah. And
in the days, we went to Pistner Rain, and we went to Linwood Sports Centre, and it was the old AstroTurf that it was like, see, like the hockey like the hockey fields nowadays, and it was brick hard, and you had guys like Ian Ferguson, Frank McGarvey, Tony Fitzpatrick, Brian Gallagher, all shooting, into you, and you say to yourself, Christ, I've just left school 2 weeks ago. Do you know what I mean? And now I'm in this situation. Yeah. So that was a bit of fortune, because it was a YTS in the days, and I think my first wage was 24 quid a week or something.
Wow.
But I felt really, really proud to go and play for my local club. And in the days it was the reserve league, and you had obviously the first team, but we can go and talk about the reserve league and stuff like that later on if you want. But it was a great upbringing. There's absolutely no doubt about it. In the days, it was very much so an apprenticeship. But what I mean by that is the first team dressing room was sacrosanct. To get into the first team dressing room, you had to kind of earn your stripes, if you like.
Yeah.
So it's not like nowadays, and the young boys have not had that apprenticeship that they can appreciate to get into the first team dressing room. But in the days, we had to chap the front door of the dressing room, and then somebody would shout, come in, and then you would walk in, and then you would get absolutely battered, getting stuff thrown at you, like boots thrown at you, and get absolute pelters, But it was a good upbringing. Some people would probably say nowadays, the PC world that we stay in now, that there's a lot of bullying going on there. But I don't look at it like that. I looked at it as a good bit of grounding that saw me through my career, and to transfer the skills that you learned back then into your adult life these days. I think it was really important to actually experience that.
Yeah. So were you cleaning players' boots and that sort of stuff, cleaning the stand?
Absolutely. Yeah. We used to. It was great when Celtic and Rangers came to Love Street, because the Rangers Celtic end was packed. Yeah. And then on the Monday morning, we had to then go and clean the stand. And honestly, you want to see the stuff you found. You found wedding rings. You found money. You found scud mags. You found all sorts of stuff, Derek. Honestly, it was great, man. They never saw us for 4 days after the game. All the young boys. But it was the stuff that you found was incredible. And again, it was a great upbringing.
Yeah. See, when you're there, Joe, was there any such thing as like a goalie coach, or was it just a case of getting shots fired into you and that sort of stuff?
Aye, well, Campbell was very, very good.
Yeah.
So he was mid-20s at that time, and he took me under his wing to the point now. Back, what's that? 38 years ago or whatever it is. I'm 50, can't I think?
Easy.
I now call him Father, you know, because he's got that kind of influence on me, and he's always had that influence on me right throughout my life. So he was very, very good at the coaching, and he was probably a wee bit more. He was probably before his time with regards to technique and, you know, how your shape and how you caught the ball, etc. You know, so it came natural to him. The coaching side of it came natural to him, and tying that in with him being a top class goalie, you know, it was a really, really good experience.
Yeah. So see, you're talking about reserve. Were you playing reserve fixtures for St Mirren before you moved to Dunfermline?
Well, we got our odd reserve games because that time's the Premier Reserve League, and it was a right good standard, you know, because Rangers could come to Love Street and the first team are at Ibrox, and the reserves come to Love Street, and you can find people like maybe Graham Souness in the team. You know, you had Terry Hurlock, you had all these guys, you know, and you're 17, 18-year-old cutting your teeth against experienced pros, you know, international players. You know, I can remember playing against Tony Cascarino and stuff like that in the reserves when I was younger. And he was an Irish international at that time, you know, Paul McStay and these guys. So it was a brilliant experience for young kids who had the opportunity to play in the Premier Reserve League. So that again was a great grounding, but we never really got a lot of games. So what the club did at that time, they farmed us out to the local club, which is Glenaford Thistle. So there was 5 or 6 went to Glenaford Thistle to play on a Saturday, and then if you were needed for the stiffs on a Saturday afternoon, then you would just then get brought in for that game. So it was a good wee system that the club had up and running. So it was almost like the third team, you know, because they never had that bigger first team squad. Maybe had your 15, 16 first team players, and then 4 or 5 who were reserves, and then the rest was kind of young boys. You know, so it was a good transition into the first team if you could make it.
Yeah, so I mean, local boy there, John, and coming through the ranks. What made you move over to Fife and join Dunfermline? 89 was it you joined them?
1989. Yeah. Again, just to touch back on the Scottish Cup, that time when St Mirren played in the May 1987. Yeah. I was a young boy at the time, so I had to pack the strips and do the boots, and you know, had to do everything. Pack all the hampers because the first team went to down to Seamill, so we were down there for 4 or 5 days, and I was left in the stadium myself to make sure that everything was right. And I can remember they were getting a few quid. I remember getting a few quid from Adidas at that time, so everything had to be Adidas, the strips and the boots and Campbell's goalie gloves, everything had to be Adidas. Campbell never wore Adidas that day, by the way, but Kenny McDowell at the time was sponsored by Puma. He was only the first team player that had a sponsor with another boot designer. So I said to Kenny, look, Kenny, the gaffer, Alex Smith, has said to me that I'm going to have to get a big tub of like Tipex, white Tipex, and I had to Tipex all the stripes for the boots so that they stood out on the camera. And so I said to Kenny, look, Kenny, what am I going to do? You've got Puma. He said, I said, the gaffer's told me to blacken out your Puma stripe and paint 3 Adidas stripes on it. And he went, don't you dare, because I'm getting a few quid for Puma. And I went, right, okay. So I didn't do it, and I thought I'm going to get absolute pelters for this. But I think, you know, the way the game went, it got forgot about, which was great, you know. But that was one of the things that you go, Christ.
Did you get to go to Hampton, John?
Well, that day we had a game in Glenaford Thistle, which is unfortunate. But the night when the bus, they toured Paisley, the place was rammed, there were 50,000 people there. And then they went back to the Excelsior Hotel for their do. So I went to that, and I had my gilt-edged suit. You know, remember they kind of grey, kind of shiny grey suits on. So I had one of them, and I sat at the table with some of the other younger boys who was like George Shaw, obviously Paul Lambert, he played as well. But with guys like Geordie Shaw, Eddie Kerr, Paul Lambert, John Butler. So I was in their table, and all the boys went into Paisley, all the first team guys. Now, I was only 16, 17 at the time, still had hair, and they all left, and Alex Smith didn't let us go into Paisley because we're too young. So we had to sit in there like absolute lemons, where all the boys were out getting pished. So, but no, it was brilliant. It was a brilliant experience. And then the day after that, again, it was the bus went round the stadium and the place was rammed Sunday morning. And I was very, very fortunate enough to get on the bus. That was a great experience as well. And then the first team went to Singapore to go and play in a tournament over there. And I don't know how long they were over there for, but that was the last time that game, the Scottish Cup final, was the last time that any team was full of all Scottish players that won the Scottish Cup. And unfortunately, unfortunately, it was the last time that team actually played together, because Derek Hamilton, who played left back, he snapped his Achilles shortly after that. Yeah, and the team then just disbanded for there. Yeah. So it was unfortunate, but it was great times at St Mirren. I loved it, absolutely loved it.
Yeah, most definitely. So, I mean, you go to Dunfermline.
Yeah.
What was the reasoning behind that move, John? Why did you go over there? Was it more of a look-in with the team, first team?
No, well, that was a carrot for me, because I was thinking to myself, I was third choice at St Mirren. I was becoming 18, 19-year-old. It was Campbell was the first team goalie. Les Fridge was the reserve goalie. And there was talk about Campbell moving to West Ham and Aberdeen in these clubs. So I was kind of in two minds. I'd signed a contract with St Mirren, but it wasn't registered, which I found out, which I didn't know. So it wasn't registered with the SFA. So we went, I don't know if you remember this either, but all the young players from the Central Belt used to go down to Largs every year, and we would be the runners for the senior players who were doing their B licence and C licence and A licence, stuff like that. And again, it was a brilliant place to be, because everybody was down there getting their badges. So it opened up. It was a great network for younger players and for actually senior players, because I can remember a lot of players getting moves on the back of that because of the network that you had with senior managers, etc. at that time. And Jim Leishman was down there. He was doing I think it was his A licence, was doing at the time. And I was in his group. And he said at that time, I think he said to somebody else, who then said to me, that young boy, that'd be really, really good to get him to Dunfermline. So that's basically how it materialised. Yeah. Ian Munro then phoned me and said, look, what's the drill? We're looking for a young goalie. They'd just been promoted into the Premier League. That was the years when Dunfermline just went right up the leagues for the bottom league, second division back then, straight up into the Premiership. I think they took a wee dip, put them back up again. Yep. So that was in July '89, and I went and met Ian Munro in Glasgow, and I signed a contract. That was about 120 quid a week or something, but that was a lot of money for me at that time. Yeah. But it wasn't obviously signing for any kind of money, because that's pish money, right, in this day and age. But it was the opportunity to maybe go and play, Premier Reserve League football, and then see if you can catapult your career for there. And Campbell wasn't happy, because he was at America at that time, and he come back, and I'd signed for Dunfermline, and I hadn't consulted him, and he was raging. He still brings it up to this day. You bastard, you went and signed when I wasn't there. So I says, well, you weren't here. What are you meant to do? So it was great. It was good. Signed a 2-year contract for Dunfermline. It was the first time I had left home, and I went and stayed in digs with a couple of other young guys who had signed at that time. And you basically became, you were in the first team dressing room. That was that step I was talking about earlier. You go from, in the away dressing room into the first team dressing room, and then it's how you handle it, and then how you actually present yourself within that. Yeah. But our reserve team at that time, it was the first time we were in the Premier Reserves. They had good individual players. First team were doing brilliant, but the stiffs, we used to get pumped 5 and 6-0 every week. You were going to Celtic Park and getting pumped 5 and 6-0, and but it was, again, it was one of them that that you really enjoyed doing because you knew that it was going to make you a better person.
Yeah. What was Jim Leishman like? I mean, we had him on a few weeks ago. He's a larger than life character, isn't he? What was he like to play for?
Big Leish. He's I didn't really know him, right? I didn't know of him. I knew of him obviously, but I didn't, know what he was going to be like. So I can remember he picked me up. We used to train in a place called Eagle Glen. I think Dunfermline were one of the first teams ever had a training centre, I feel like.
Yeah.
So we never went to East End Park. We went to Eagle Glen, and I can remember us driving up. They came out of East End Park, down the Hillbeath Road, and he had his name on the side of a car. It was a sponsored car he had, and he was driving up the road, and these guys were hanging out the car, bowing to him, shouting Leishman. I was like, oh, fucking hell. I thought it was Freddie Boswell at the time. So, so I kind of then knew, once I get to know people in Dunfermline and how big a name that he really, really was and what he had actually done for the club. It was absolutely sensational. Yeah. I can remember after my first season, he took me into his office and he said to me, how do you think you've done this year? And I says, well, I think I did okay. It was my first season in Premier Reserves. And with that Fife accent, I'm not going to put one. Well, I'm going to put one on, right? But it's not a Welsh accent, it's a Fife one. He went, 100 goals you've let in. You've let in 100 goals this year. How the fuck could you have done well? I was like, well, when you put it that way, Gaffer, I suppose. But he said, well, for that, he says, well, I think you've done well. And we're going to take me to Tenerife. So the first team boys, because they stayed up that year, first team boys chipped in, a few quid, and they took me to Tenerife with them. It was absolutely brilliant. Oh. And I got a new contract. I think I got a 2-year contract again. I think it was 20 quid a week rise or something. And how we based it on, I can remember sitting in his office again, and he said to me, right, we're going to offer a new deal. He says, but it's going to be based on how many lasses you've been with in the tune. And I went, Gaffer, no, I know that many, you know that. He's like, right, that's all a year contract then, right? And it was just banter that way, So he based it on how many lasses you've been with in Dunfermline. Absolutely brilliant. So I got a 10-year contract for that. I'm only joking.
See, the goal, Ian Westwater would have been there, wouldn't he? He's another one we had on a wee while ago.
Big Westy was there.
What was he like?
Big Westy's a great guy.
Yeah.
He's the fittest goalie I've ever seen in my life.
Oh, really? Wow.
Because goalies are just, they can't run, right? As everybody knows. They can't run. Good at doing the anaerobic stuff, the short, sharp drills and that. Big Westy could run. He was like Forrest Gump. Unbelievable. So he was always up the front and I was always at the back. But, it was like a couple of bookends. He was always there and I was always there, and we kept the pack together. And there was always a marker for some of the slower players, because if I overtook them, then they were going to get the balls kicked, quite frankly. Yeah. So, but no, Big Westy was a brilliant goalie as well. He was absolutely, great worker, probably one of the best workers that I've worked with. And again, he was a really, really good senior influence in my career. Yeah. Because there was times when you're coming in after a game and you've just lost 5 or 6 and you're getting pelters. But he was always a really kind of calming influence. He was a great guy.
Yeah. Can you remember making your debut there?
I do. Aye. That was against St Mirren, and Big Lindsay was the goalie. Big Lindsay Hamilton was the goalie, and we played Stennismuir on the Tuesday night, and Big Lindsay threw one in, I think. And I can remember Jockey Scott was the manager at the time. I can remember getting on pelters for the side, and Big Davy Moyes was he was playing in the game.
Yeah.
And he said to me on the Thursday, he says, look, go and chat the gaffer's door on Friday and just open the door. Don't engage in any conversation. Just say, Gaffer, if you need me for Saturday, then I'm ready to play. And Jockey Scott just looked up and says, all right, son, thanks for that. And I shut the door. And then I made my debut on the Saturday. So that was a really, really good bit of advice that Big Moisey gave me. Yeah. And we played against St Mirren and we got beat 2-1. But I was happy with my performance. I remember Campbell was a coach at that time.
Yeah.
And then in the days at East End Park, you can run down the wee stairs and Campbell says, look, I hope you have a blinder, but I hope you get beat 1-0. Yeah. So I was like, I fair dues. I understood the reasons why he was saying that and understood the rationale of him saying that to me, because obviously he was still a St Mirren man, but he didn't want me to, he just wanted me to do well, which was great.
Yeah, but you bit and going into your debut and all that, being a young guy, John, were you sort of intimidated, or do you just take it in your stride? Do you feel you were ready for it?
I did. I did think I was ready for it because Andy Rhodes was there as well. Andy Rhodes was the goalie. I can't remember what happened to Rhodesy. I don't know if he was injured or no. He'd left to go to St Johnstone. I'm pretty sure Rhodesy had left. So again, he was a brilliant goalie. He's actually probably one of the best shot stoppers that I've ever worked with. Rhodesy was frightening. Very dramatic goalkeeper, but unbelievable shot stopper to the point that he's probably one of the best that I've ever saw or ever worked with. So Rhodes had moved on. Big Westy had moved to Falkirk, I think, and Lindsay was there. He came to St Johnstone, and I think a couple of other players came. I can't remember who it was at the time. But anyway, Lindsay, he got dropped, but I was ready. I felt within myself, I was physically ready and I was mentally ready, because I can remember there was maybe about a year before that. There was touch. I was maybe going to make my debut against Dundee United at East End, but I didn't feel ready at that time because I didn't feel physically strong enough. But I was on a weights program, etc., and I then felt as if I was ready to play.
Aye. See where you're at, Dunfermline. Of course, there was that fallout. Big Leishman left. Monroe takes over. Yeah. What was the feeling? Because we had Westy said that there was a sort of bad atmosphere regarding
it was
a board decision. Did you feel that as players as well? Is it?
You could feel it. And it was unfortunate because I think it created a divide between the players as well. And there was quite a lot of cliques at that time. You had the guys for the West. You had Big Moisey. You had Scott Leach, Eddie Cunnington, Billy Davis, and then you had the boys for Dundee. Ray Farmingham, Davy Irons and these boys, and then you had the boys for Edinburgh and Fife. So there was cliques. It was quite unfortunate. They were all great guys individually, but I felt that had an effect on the performances on the pitch. And I don't know if that's came for Big Leash and the Monroe thing. I don't know, but definitely did have an effect. There's no doubt about that. And I was all a young boy at the time, and even I felt that.
Aye. Yeah, absolutely. Istvan Kozma, how good was he?
The best, I have to say. He was a Hungarian international. I still don't know to this day how Dunfermline could get a guy like Istvan Kozma to sign, because he was, do you know what I mean? The guy was a wizard. So I can remember we were playing a practice game on the pitch. I think it was a Tuesday afternoon or Tuesday morning, and we were playing a practice game and we were waiting this guy Istvan Kozma coming from Edinburgh Airport, getting picked up. I think it was Big Jim Leishman's driver, the guy called Joke the Rollman, right, who would go and do Big Leish's or his shit jobs, and he would go. So he went and picked up Istvan, and he got changed and came into this game, and I think he scored about 4 goals within 20 minutes. You're saying, who's this guy? I mean, there were some times when midweek Istvan went about training, and you would say, "Where's Istvan?" He's away playing against Brazil or Sweden for Hungary. We were all running about the training ground at Dunfermline, and he's away logging it. Do you know what I mean? Playing for Brazil, playing against Sweden or something like that. It was great, absolutely brilliant. Great for the fans as well.
He was some player. George Boyle joined at the same time as well, didn't he? He was a cracking player, wasn't he?
George was a great player as well. He signed for Marseille, and great touch. Couldn't run. He had a lot of injuries. His Achilles, he struggled with his Achilles, struggled with his knees. But what a player, to the point that him and Ross Jack were the strikers at that time. And I think Ross Jack was one of the top goal scorers in the country, not just Scotland, in Britain. And me, George, hadn't scored any goals. Now, usually for fans in a club, then, to be one of the strikers, no score goals, is, you're getting the axe. But because he was so intelligent on the pitch and stupid off the pitch, don't get me wrong, he used to, the service that he gave Ross Jack, for Ross Jack to score the goals was frightening. We used to share digs as well, me and me, George. And I'd be sleeping in my bed, pitch black, I could hear this grinding, and I go, what's going on? And he used to grind his teeth when he slept at night, and it kept me up. It was that loud that actually kept me up. It drove me nuts. But anyway, that was George O'Boyle for you.
So Bert and Dick comes in.
Aye.
How did you find them, John?
I thought they're lovely guys. Don't get me wrong, but But Bert and Dick, I respect them for being honest.
Aye.
That's the way I looked at that.
Yeah.
Because they made it clear that they wanted to bring their own guys in. And I had finished the season with Jockey Scott. I think we missed out in promotion with a point. We got beat with Cowdenbeath at East End Park, and I think Kilmarnock won. But put them up, and we stayed in it was the first division, which was doing the championship. And that was Jockey's last game. And I had finished that season, and I'd finished it really, really strongly, to the point that Jockey had extended my contract, which was great. So, but he then left, him and Gordon Wallace, they left, and Bert and Dick came in. And again, Bert took me into his office and said, you know, you finished the season. At the moment, it was me and Lindsay still.
Yeah.
At the moment, you're going to start the season. It was Falkirk. We're playing Falkirk at Brockville. He said, you're going to start the season. He says, so get yourself fit through the games. And I wish he never told me that, because I felt that because he had told me there was 3 or 4 pre-season games that we had to play. One was against Motherwell, where David Cooper was playing. And I think we were up at Highlands for a pre-season tour. And I felt that I took my foot off the gas, because I knew I was going to be starting the season. So I made a bit of an arse of it, to be honest. And but Bert had they told me that I wasn't starting, and then the team got read out at Brockville, and I wasn't playing. So I kind of knew that was the beginning of the end for my time at Dunfermline. I got back in again, a few games, and I felt I did all right. I think I got 4 clean sheets in a row, 7, and a cluster of 12 games, that kind of thing.
Aye.
But I knew that, Bert was wanting to bring his own players in, and he brought in Big Westy, and Westy went straight into the team. Lindsay was then on the bench, which then meant I was surplus to requirements. And then that's when I think I still had a year left of my contract, and we negotiated that was me going to move on.
Aye. Before we go to Clyde, you mentioned their pre-season. Was there any manager that had the toughest pre-season that you endured, that you hated, or is there anyone that sticks out at all?
Every single pre-season, I can't run. Right? Campbell used to say that it took me 16 minutes to do a 12-minute run. Right, that's how quick I am. Right, every single pre-season was a nightmare for me, because I felt it was important for goalies. It's not the same now, because they get straight in and get the ball and stuff like that. But I felt it was important for goalies to do at least the 2 weeks running with the first team players, because it gave you the base fitness that you could then move into your shorter, sharper drills with your handling, etc., and get your eye in when it came to crossing and finishing and all that. So we used to do these 2 weeks, but every single pre-season I did was horrendous. One that I did with Dumbarton, but in 2000, but we can come to that. And it was with Jimmy Brown. He was the manager, and Tam Carlson, he was assistant, and they took us to Faz Lane to training. Aye, so they took us in there, and we get bluttered with these PTs. So we were up and downstairs. We're up and downstairs with like tyres on my back and all that, and then they took us into the pool. And I can hardly swim. I could save my life. That's about it. And they took us into this pool, and they absolutely battered us in the pool. It's the hardest thing I've ever done in my puff. Honestly, I swear to God. So that's probably the hardest pre-season I've done. Plus, it was part-time. And, because it was condensed into 2 or 3 nights a week. So it was, hold on, what's that say? I cancel that. Wait an hour. Aye. Probably that was a pre-season. But when you're full-time, I was full-time for 12 years. So I used to get really nervous before doing like the runs, and I used to get the runs, don't get me wrong. But no, pre-season wasn't for me. I hated it. Yeah.
So you go to Clyde then, was it Alex Smith was there, wasn't it? Was that part of the reason you went there?
Alex Smith was there. It was the last day of the transfer window. I can remember it was about March time, I think. And again, there was that negotiation about contract, because I still had a year left in my contract with Dunfermline, or a year and a half. So I wasn't leaving for nothing, because I was going to have to take a drop in wages to go to Clyde. And again, I go back to it. Again, it was a really important move to try and get first team football, to become a first team goalie, if you like.
Yeah.
And so, but I still couldn't leave myself high and dry. So I think I got a couple of quid from Dunfermline, paid me up, and then I signed with Clyde. And I think it was probably 2 hours before the transfer deadline, and I signed it. Again, they were that was a kind of strange setup, because they just moved into Broadwood at that time. I think they were there the season before, and it was a kind of, you trained 2 nights a week and you trained 2 days a week, and I found it quite hard to adapt, because you're going for full-time football, albeit it was still full-time, but the timing was different.
Aye.
And I kind of struggled with that. But it was a good move, and there were really, really good players at that time as well. George McCluskey was there, Charlie Nicholas was there, there was loads, Big Keith Knox, all these guys, seasoned pros that were at the club at that time. And we, I think we struggled. It was the championship. Again, I made my debut for Clyde against St Mirren. I think out of my 15 clubs, Derek, I think I probably made my debut against St Mirren for about 12 of them, which is bizarre. It's absolutely bizarre. But, so we did that. Fridgie was there as well. So Alex Smith, obviously I knew him from my St Mirren days. And Fridgie was there, Les Fridge. And Fridgie being Fridgie, when he saw me walking in, he thought that he was on a move to Inter Milan. Because that was just his. I wish I had his confidence, by the way, right? But that's what he thought. Oh, brilliant, right? I'm going to Inter Milan. Well, you're not really, right? Because the transfer window's shut, and I'm here to take your place, basically. So I was there for 2 years and had a really, really good time.
Yeah. What was Charlie Nicholas like in and around the dressing room and that? He's a larger than life character, isn't he?
Well, we couldn't believe it, right? Because we were struggling in the second division.
Yeah.
Teams coming to Broadwood, it was you get your Stranraers and, East Fife and all these, still in Albion, really, really good, well-drilled teams coming to Broadwood. And you're thinking, right, they're getting a lift here because they're coming to a good stadium. We were full-time, etc. So that gave them the added edge. But then when Charlie signed, again, that was another added edge, because they were playing against Charlie Nicholas and guys like George McCluskey, as I said earlier. But he was a brilliant pro, absolutely brilliant. Now, he could have been excused for coming to Clyde and just pissing about for a year and picking up money, because I don't know the ins and outs of his contract, but he was on way more money than anybody at the club.
Yeah.
So, but what a professional. He was absolutely brilliant. He came to training every single day. He helped the young boys. He helped you on the pitch, and he was an absolute genius. There's no doubt about that. Yeah. He was something special, and at that time it raised the profile of not only the club, but raised the profile of the players as well at that time. And he was responsible for. We played Rangers at Broadwood, and it was live on Sky, and we got a lot of coverage throughout the week on that. Yeah. And me being the goalie at that time, I got quite a lot of coverage as well. And there was other players, Eddie Anand as well, who's a good pro, got a lot of coverage. But there's no danger that we'd have probably got that game live on Sky if it wasn't for Charlie, because he was doing a co-com at that time for Sky as well. And so he got the cameras to us, and I was fortunate enough to get man of the match in that game. And so it raised my profile to the point that, people had saw you on the telly and kind of know what you can do for there. So, no, he was brilliant. He's a great addition to the club. Absolutely brilliant.
After that, I guess you'll be looking for a move to Inter Milan after that game, John.
Well, that's what you're thinking, isn't it? You know what I mean? It was Duke Pumperson I went to, probably.
See, did you ever play at Shawfield before? Did you ever play against Clyde at Shawfield?
Aye, I did. It was I was playing with Dunfermline. I think it was a friendly, and we played at Shawfield. I can remember the pitch being brilliant for some reason. Yeah, it was it was like a bowling green. But I can't remember that much about it. Derek. You know, I can't really remember going there or anything. I went there with the horses for my sister's 50th, but that's about it. You know, I can't really remember playing there or, you know, any experiences.
They've sort of struggled with the Broadwood move, haven't it? It's not really much for them over the years that is what they would have liked.
No, because I think at that time they were thinking, you know, they're going to a new town, they're going to get a new fan base. They're going to be, you know, they built that stadium, they're going to get 3,000 or 4,000 people in. They threw a bit of money at various players to come, and it didn't materialise. Yeah. You know, they have got that cohort of fan base. They're obviously from Rutherglen and, you know, all the surrounding areas who go to Clyde every week. Yeah. But I doubt it very much if there's a lot of supporters go to Broadwood from Cumbernauld every week. You can probably say the same for Livingston. You know, that's, you know, the thought that they're moving from Meadowbank to come into Livingston, they're going to get these, you know, they're going to get a new cohort of fans. It's not really turned out that way.
You're competing with the old firm as well, so it's difficult.
Absolutely.
So why you moved to Hamilton for a wee spell after that, didn't you?
I did.
What was the thinking behind that?
Well, so after my amazing game on the telly, where we got beat 4-1 and I get man of the match, I got freed, right? I got freed. Clyde freed me, right? So again, naivety for me. Alex, but all my contracts were up. Alex, but I'm saying to myself, I'm getting up here. Fridgie's left. He had a sponsored car. I'm going to go up here and ask for this sponsored motor and all that. Right? I'm going to ask for this wage rise and blah, blah, blah. And I took me in, he sat me down and freed me. Honestly, couldn't believe it. Actually couldn't believe it. So I can remember driving back to my flat in Renfrew, and I was almost greeting, saying to myself, what am I going to do? Because I'd never worked before. You know, that's me. Started in 1987, had my clubs. I'm now 1995 or 6, I don't know what it is, no, 8-9 years, no knowing what to do. So got my contracts out, got my contacts, and I actually sat down and wrote a letter and sent it to every single club in Britain. Wow. I can't remember the amount of clubs it was, but for the Premiership, right down to the lower leagues in England and all the clubs in Scotland, I sent every single letter to them just to make them aware that I was free. Yeah. And the pile of letters behind the door after it with knockbacks on it was frightening. So, but at the end of the day, it was just one of these things.
Don't get.
Aye, absolutely. You know, so they did have agents and stuff like that. You know, so I just did it myself. But the sending the letters out, I think that alerted clubs, because they were then getting into pre-season at that time and they had their squads. But I was quite fortunate because Murdo McLeod phoned me from Partick Thistle. Yeah. One of their goalies, Mark Cairns, I think he got injured. Big Nicky Walker was there. I think he left. They couldn't afford to pay him. Mark Cairns was there. Me, Kevin Budanauskas and Kenny Arthur were the 3 goalies, but they were just young boys and they needed somebody else in. So, but between that close season, we getting freed with Clyde. Sandy Clark was the manager of Hamilton, and you can, I don't know if you still can, but you can play 3 games as a trialist for a club. So Hamilton Ackies phoned me and says, look, we need a goalie. You know, I think they'll give me a brown envelope with a couple of quid in it. Don't tell the taxman that, by the way. So anyway, it's pennies. So I played a couple of games for Sandy, and then on the Friday I got a phone call from Murdo McLeod. Aye. And he said to me, you know, we've got a month contract here, our goalies are injured. I says, well, I'm due to play for Hamilton Ackies, which would have been my last game. So I then I was left with a dilemma. So I phoned up Sandy Clark. I says, look, I've got the opportunity here again a wee bit longer. And that's the way it was in the days. You know what I mean? But sometimes it was month-to-month contracts. I mean, to survive through that time, you had your endowment policies and all that. And you had to cash them in because you had no money, you know, to pay your mortgage. So that's how bad it was. People think you play, you know, 20 years career. It wasn't like that for guys like myself, you know, lower league players. It just wasn't like that. So anyway, I spoke to Sandy, and Sandy was very understanding, and it was really decent of him. So he brought in the young boy for the game on Saturday, and I signed for Partick Thistle. The first game we played East Fife, ironically, and Big Lindsay was playing for East Fife at the time, and we beat them 6-0. And then I went on to have a good run, and then I signed to the end of the season for there. So again, it was just year-to-year contracts, just try to get yourself by, just seeing if you can get that move that's going to kind of sort you out,
Yeah.
But Partick Thistle was brilliant. I loved it there. Yeah. Big club.
It certainly is. It must be mega stressful that though, John. I mean, going to club, don't know how long you're going to be there, and they try to pay the bills and all that. It's crazy.
Unbelievable. It's a real stress. Because I think there's 2% of the football population can retire at 35, probably not even that, But the majority of us have to have a wage coming in.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't happening, then what can you do? You just have to take what's there, and then hopefully that you can get a bigger club or a more extended contract or whatever.
Yeah. So you had a wee couple of spells, Clydebank, Hamilton and Morton. Is that right? And then back to Hamilton again?
For Thistle, I went. Ian McCall was at Partick Thistle as a player, and then he took her at Clydebank as the manager. But again, they were playing at, where were we playing? We were playing at Boghead with them at the old Dumbarton Stadium.
Yeah.
Hate it, right? Absolute nightmare of a place.
Yeah.
And but I mean, he had a lot of good players at that time. Collie signed a lot of good players. Fraser Wishart, Big Kenny Brannigan was playing.
Yeah.
Gary Teal, Davy Nichols. It was a right good squad, and I went there, but I didn't enjoy it for some reason. Again, that was kind of like a part-time kind of setup, but it was full-time. Yep. But it was training at strange times of the day and stuff. So I think I had the opportunity to get out of Ireland, I think, at that time. I think it was. I think I had the opportunity to go to Glentoran.
Yeah.
And I went over there for the Friday. It was the deal was done. We spoke about, in the days there was players going over from Scotland down to Ireland, and they were getting mega dough, and it was really, really good wages. And I think the deal equated to like clean sheet bonuses and stuff like that. It was like 50 grand a year, and that's a lot of money, for me at that time. So the deal was done. I just had to go on the Friday to sign the contract on the Saturday, and then that would be me, a Glentoran player. I went on the Friday, and the manager, I can't remember his name, it was a boy who played for Northern Ireland, played right back for Northern Ireland, but I can't remember his name. Anyway, he says, look, there's a game, we're playing Dungannon Swifts on the Saturday. Do you fancy playing? I says, aye, no bother. Shocker again. So I went out and played the game. The boys scored for 2 corners straight in. So he did. Aye. So I had to... So at the end of the game, he goes, well, I think we're going to have to renegotiate that contract. I'm like, no bother, pal. See you later. And the plane journey back to Glasgow Airport was 45 minutes. And the days you get free berry. Ended up steaming. I got off the plane. I get picked up, and I was absolutely wrecked. So that was me. The Glentoran game was bust. So shocker. But I went to Morton after that. I had a spell with Morton, which I really enjoyed. Peter Weir was the manager.
Yeah.
No, tell a lie. Billy Stark was the manager, and Peter Weir was the assistant. And Big Billy was a really, really good professional. And I got the opportunity to play against Celtic at Parkhead and stuff like that at that time. So that was a good experience for us as well. Loads of good players there as well. There was boys that had played in the Premier League. Big Brian Reid and wee Alan Mahood, Warren Hawk, wee Derek Collins, all these guys, really, really good professionals, and I really enjoyed it in Morton.
Yeah. You said you played at Parkhead. Was there any stadiums that you love going to, John, that you love playing at?
Well, I was very fortunate in my career because I've got so many clubs. I played at every stadium in Scotland, which is great. Right? Apart from the new ones, obviously, like the new St Mirren Park, etc. But the older stadiums, all the stadiums except for the new ones, I've got, I've had the privilege of playing at every stadium for there. Pitches I used to love, most of them. It's probably easy to say the ones that you don't like playing at. Boghead, Boghead, right? Shambles. Right? That should have been that. For me, it's like for Clydebank. I said to myself, you don't like the stadium, you dick. So please don't sign for it. Right? Anyway, I never, because I did my cruciate ligament at Boghead. Every single time I played at Boghead, something happened to me. Did my cruciate, lost a stupid goal. It's just a crap place to play, and I hated it. So that was the worst eye ever.
See, you see a lot of clubs now playing on the Astro and all that. Is that something you ever played on, John? And I guess you wouldn't have fancied that if you'd done your cruciate on.
Aye, well, the first Astroturf pitch was all still an Albion pitch. It was Anfield. That's what it was called, and it was like the
carpet.
It was like the hockey style. Right, it was terrible. You were like a BMX tracker when you were going out to play, because you had all these pads on, your knee pads, your elbow pads, and all that kind of stuff to play in this stuff. So I hated playing on that. But the new stuff, the 4G, when we came in, I didn't really mind it. To be honest, I know it gets a lot of stick, right? And obviously it's better. It's better playing in grass, right? There's no doubt about that. Yeah. But for commercial reasons, for provincial clubs, then it's probably the way to go, because they can train on it, they can play on it, they can hire it out. But for a personal point of view, Derek, I didn't mind it. I didn't mind playing on it.
See, I meant to ask John, see when the pass back rule came in,
how
did you deal with that? Because I had Tony Craig on a few months ago, and he says it was horrific.
Shocker.
Right.
Shocker. Again, it was one of these rules that managers based goalies on. Now, I think it was 1993, right? You're probably able to correct me. So the last game of the season, you could pick the ball up, and then the next game of the season, you weren't allowed to pick the ball up. Aye. So between that time, goalies are coached to kick the ball two ways. One is for a goal kick, and two is out your hands. Yeah. Right? So that's the way goalies are coached. But from that, for the end of that season to the start of that season, managers were expecting you to be like Pele with the ball at your feet. Right? Now, some of the players couldn't do it. So it was really, really unfair on goalies, because goalies then got judged. Managers weren't saying, how is he? How's his handling? How's his start position? How's it crosses? How's his shot stopping? They were saying, how is he with the ball at his feet? And the majority were pish. Do you know what I mean? We're absolutely so. And there was no bigger person who struggled with it was Jim Lane, because Jim really, really struggled with the pass back rule when it first came out.
Yeah.
But he learned, because of the top goalie that he is, he learned how to adapt and adjust, and then got capped for Scotland. But from my personal point of view, it was murder, because I was all left foot. You know, I couldn't kick the ball on my right. So players were, you know, they could tell if you're on the left-hand side and you're taking it in, you could then maybe make a decent pass. But there was, when it came on your right-hand side, your shank hangs out the pitch and all that, you know. So for me, it wasn't a good rule to bring in. I thought, because they brought the pass-back rule in to speed the game up, because there was players time wasting, knock the ball back to goalie, pick it up, roll it back out of So it was to speed the game up. I thought at that time, we're going to speed the game up, then one of the linesmen could stand by a stopwatch. If you're going to move for 6 seconds, you press the stopwatch and you've got the ball in your hands. If you've got the ball longer than 6 seconds in your hands, it's an indirect free kick. Aye. And that was my kind of theory behind it. But no, it's just part of the game, isn't it? That's how they do it. But I can remember the first game back, referees didn't know the rules either. They didn't know what they were doing. There was a free kick outside the box. Big Andy Williamson, who was the defender at Dunfermline at the time, I think we were playing Kelty Hearts or something, and he needed the ball back to me. And I picked it up, and the ref's like, that's fine. It clearly isn't fine, because you need to hit the thing with your foot for it to be live. So there was all that kind of, you know, discrepancies about it. It just wasn't good. Yeah. You know, but again, on everything you have to adapt, Derek.
Well, the sweeper keepers they call them now, don't they? It's like they're players and that sort of thing. It's crazy. See when you went back to Accies, was Colin Miller the manager at that time?
So Colin then signed me from Morton, and Colin was there, and Ali Dawson, God rest his soul, he was the assistant manager. Again, they had a lot of real good, you know, experienced players at that time. Gary Clark, big Miro Kravokovic was there.
Yeah.
Eddie Cunnington was there. Chris Hillcoat. A lot of good young players coming through as well. So Accies was a good club. Again, they were skint at that time. Scott Struthers, who was the secretary, he tried his best, to make sure that our wages were in time, etc. Again, that was a really, inconsistent time, because you didn't know you were getting paid one week to the other. But I had a good time at Accies.
Yeah. Again,
we were playing. I think the biggest bonus I've ever won actually was we were playing St Mirren at Love Street. It was a Scottish Cup. One day, pissing the rain, B. Junior Mendes scored 1-0 with St Mirren. He was. Yeah. Last 5 minutes, we had a corner. I think it was Gary Wells. Played it out to Gary Clark. And Gary Clark smashed one in the top corner, so it was one each. Well, right, okay, 50 quid bonus or something for the draw. But in the days, the draw get made on the Saturday night. So the Scottish Cup draw then get made on the Saturday night. And the draw was Hamilton or St Mirren versus Rangers. So that 50 quid, you're saying to yourself, right, for the replay, you're saying to yourself, right, we've got Rangers in the next round. And then it came to fruition that it was going to be live on Sky. So I think the club was getting 100 grand from it. And so the bonus went from 50 quid to 1,000 for the game, for the return leg. And we played them at Firhill. And we beat them 1-0, which was great. So that was the biggest bonus I've ever won, was 1,000 quid. Yeah. Absolutely magic. And then we went and played Rangers and we got pumped 6-0.
Yeah, I remember that. They had some players like that. That was Advocat was in charge then, when you had
ridiculous
and all that, and
ridiculous. Aye, they had the boy Givars up front, Stefan Givars. He just
won the World Cup.
He just won the World Cup with France, and he's out cutting about for Hull. You know what I mean? But one time in one meal, you had Kinchelskis on the one wing, and then you had Van Bronckhorst on the other wing. You know what I mean? It was like playing on the M8. You know what I mean? These guys are running up down the wing. You're going, fucking hell, what chance you got? But and I can remember saying to Mike McCurry, he was the ref at that time. I think we were 6 down, 75 minutes into the game. I was like, how long to go? He said 50 minutes. I was like, just blow the whistle, please. Just get us off this pitch, man. Good experience, do you know what I mean?
I had Colin Miller on a few weeks ago, John, and he summed up what you said about Accies at that time. It was tough with regards to wages and all that, but he said there was times he'd be driving you down to the training and he'd be driving the bus and all that, and then if they stopped at a junction, he'd get his keys chucked at the one day and he'd have to go on the road to pick the keys up.
All that stuff. And it was a race. It was a place called Smithycroft.
I know what it is, yeah. I used to stay near it.
Just outside Hamilton. And it was a race to see who was going to get there first. It was either us or Motherwell. So sometimes if you were late getting to Smithycroft, then Motherwell are there. And you're like, fucking hell, where are we going to train? So you find yourself training like on the car parks and all that. Do you know what I mean? Honestly, it's unbelievable. It'll be public parks and fucking jobbies and that line of it, you know, and you're trying to do a goalie session. By the way, I hope I can swear there. Is that all right?
Absolutely, yep.
So that was Accies for you. And then, of course, we played at Firhill, and that wasn't the ideal either. No. Because, it wasn't fair on the Accies fans at that time.
Yeah.
They had to travel and stuff, but it was good. It was a good experience. But I remember playing at Brockville, and I broke my foot. I got a compound fracture on my foot, and I got carried off Gary Clark in the goals. And I was on Stookie. I think it was about April. My contract was up in the May, and I got freed, and that was my last full-time club. But I was kind of gutted because I got freed, injured, and I had a Stookie on.
Yeah.
So to get back into pre-season and try and prolong your full-time career was almost null and void. You couldn't do it, So I was I was gutted with that, to be honest. But listen, it's just one of these things.
Yeah, that's what it is. Who spells you managed to, was it Queen of the South in Dumbarton? A couple of spells there, then back at St Mirren of all teams. How did that come about? Well,
that was my last full-time club was Hamilton, and then again it was a bit of fortune. George Rowe, who was the Queen of the South manager, they were needing a goalie. Somebody got injured. Alan Kerr, who was a midfielder at that time. George always said, look, we need a goalie. Kerr was like, well, I played with Hilly at Hamilton Accies. Why don't we get him in? So I signed on the Friday night in a pub in Paisley, on the car park, on the boot of his car, and signed my contract for 50 quid a week to play for Queen of the South. So I played there for a year, and it was a good time. Again, good crack. We were pish, right? Don't get me wrong. It was that year where we struggled, and it was the year when Hamilton Accies refused to play a game.
I remember it, yeah.
2000, I think it was 2001. Yeah. And so, but before that game, the chairman at the time, a guy called Ronnie Bradford, I think, said, look, we were 14 points adrift. He says, if you can catch, it was Hamilton Accies at the time, if you can catch them, then there's a pot there. It was 14 grand or something like that to keep us in the league. You're like, I need bother, pal. It could be 400 grand, right? There's no danger that we're going to get the points back. Because Hall won a game all season. And then Accies refused to turn up on the Saturday to play a game. It was at Steny. And they get deducted 14 points. Right? So we were then second bottom of the league. So the bonus then comes into play. And then I think the last 2 or 3 games, I think we won one and drew one or something like that. But Accies got relegated and we stayed up. So we all get 900 quid through default, right? For being the worst team in the league. we all get 900 quid, man. Absolutely brilliant. The fans were singing that, the Great Escape tune. It was a great escape. But that was good. And then probably the best thing about that was the film that I shot at Glory. So when they came in August and they shot it. And they beat us. I think they beat us in the quarters. I think they beat us 4-2 or something like that. Yeah. And it was good. It was good playing. That's probably the highlight of my Queen of the South career, to be honest. And then for there, went to Dumbarton. Worst pre-season on the planet. Honestly, felt like that was the swimming one I was telling you about earlier in the pool, etc. Yeah. Absolute nightmare. Again, we joined it. Really enjoyed it at Dumbarton. The camaraderie in the dressing room was arguably the best that I've had. The nights that we used to have with Dumbarton was frightening. It's absolutely magic. Yeah. And again, I was there for, I think it was a season and a half, just under 2 seasons. And I get Tom Henry phoned me. I was at a favour at Dumbarton at the time. Tom Henry phoned me. Big Ludo Roy was a goalie at St Mirren. Yeah, and he was moved to St Johnstone. They were in a hell of a state with regards to finance. And he says, look, we need a goalie. I says, well, I've got a job. I was then started as a worker in Kibble Education and Care Centre in Paisley. Yeah. So I was part-time, so I'm full-time. I says, well, I'm part-time, but I'm signed with Dumbarton. But anyway, Dumbarton were good enough to release me, to be fair. And they released me and I signed for St Mirren on, I think it was a Monday night, and we played there on the Tuesday. I hadn't played for a few weeks, so I was a bit nervous and stuff like that. And especially going back to the club that you support and the support that you love as a man, essentially. I really enjoyed it. It was absolutely brilliant. Probably the best time of my career, the most enjoyable time of my career.
Yeah. See the shot at Glory stuff, John. Were you mix? Were you in and about when the Val and all that was hanging about?
Aye. Honestly, it was brilliant. It was great because the boys had the night out down in Carlisle, so we were all steaming. They were steaming the night before. We were all hungover, and I didn't go. And I went down to the game, and I didn't really know what they were doing. They were just, they're going to be shooting this film, blah blah blah. But I didn't realise it was going to be Robert Duvall, So I can remember standing with me and a couple of other guys, but standing talking to him, and he was dead down to earth. He was absolutely brilliant, So he's and it was good. It was a good game. If you actually watch that film, it's a shit film, right? Don't get me wrong. If you actually watch the film, you see Coisty having this unbelievable overhead kick, and it wasn't planned. Yeah, it was frightening. The ball get played in, and he does this overhead kick. He's in the corner, and it was great that they caught it on camera. It was absolutely magic. But that was a good time.
Yeah. We had Alan Lawrence and Big John Martin on before. They talked about that, and they said they ripped out Michael Keaton's son or something was on set, and they just Made an arse.
Is that right?
Is it really big time?
Aye, because there was a couple of guys that were actors, pish at football. So they were, right, but they were actors obviously, so they had to be in the film. But I can remember Big Jock and wee Nipper and all these guys, wee Craig McEwen and all that, they were on it. But great experience for these boys. I think they get a few quid, but for doing that actually, which was good.
Yeah, it was unreal. So a wee spell at St Mirren, then you went there for there. Was it Stranraer? You had a season, and then was it United for there?
Yeah, I left St Mirren for there, and Tom Henry was offered me. He says, "Look, you can stay, but you'd be third choice." I says, "No, I need to play."
Aye.
So I went to Stranraer. Big Billy. Oh, Christ, the name's just escaped me there. But he was a manager, signed, absolutely brilliant. We had a really, really good time at that time. The first season we played, we were top of the league at Christmas, and then we got relegated in May. Now, Wraith Rovers went up. They went up that season, and we got relegated. And between top and bottom, there was 12 points.
Wow.
That's how tight the league was. It was really, really tight. But it was a good club. Ali Dawson was there as well. He was assistant there. But no, it was good. You know, again, they let everybody go at the end of that season. And I was fortunate enough to go to Ayr United there with Campbell. Campbell signed me for Ayr United. That's kind of when my coaching kind of, you know, I was left with a kind of two-pronged approach. What do I do here? Do I still try to play? Or do I go down the player coach route? And I chose that route to go, you know, go to Ayr as a player coach.
Yeah. See, before that, John, you touched on Ali Dawson again there. I mean, it's a tragedy we've lost him just a week or so ago. What was he like to work alongside?
He's an absolute gentleman.
Yeah.
Really, really nice guy and a very, very good coach as well. He was one of these guys that you could be honest with, which is fundamentally, that's what you're looking for from not just a manager, for any human being, you know, to be honest with you. And when I was getting freed back in Hamilton Accies, he was honest, because I had a goalkeeper, Chris Reid, at that time, who was in contract, and he just couldn't afford to keep us, and he was honest about it. So, you know, since then, I've had numerous dealings with Ali. He was doing the street soccer stuff, and I got him into our school to do a question and answer session with the pupils, and he was absolutely a delight to work with.
Yeah, it certainly was. So you went here and you done a bit the player coaching. Did you always fancy going into the coaching side of things, John? Yes,
I did. I thought that was probably the time for me to do it. Campbell had signed Ludovic Roy, and he was looking for a backup at that time, an experienced backup. So Campbell signed me for Ayr. And again, there was loads of good players at that time. Michael O'Neill had just signed. Stevie Ferguson had just signed. So, you know, there was going to be a good push in the championship. Well, first division back then. But it didn't turn out that way. But I still enjoyed the coaching aspect of it, you know, and being backup to Ludo. And Campbell gave me a lot of responsibility with regards to taking the goalkeeping and, you know, trusting my judgment with regards to if, you know, how's Ludo fit? Is he fit? Is he not ready to play, etc. And he knew if anything happened to Ludo, then he could rely on me to go in and play his backup.
Yeah. And there you had we spell it Brecon, Stenhouse Muir, East Stirlingshire as well.
Brecon is the best. It's arguably the best part-time club in Scotland. The people who are associated to Brecon are the absolute salt of the earth. Yeah. Brilliant people and brilliant fans. It's a wee club, a real community club with brilliant people who are surrounded, you know, who are involved in the club. I was interim manager there. I don't know if you know that, Derek, but
no.
Pink Campbell, he was the manager at Brecon, and we were going through a bad time, and him and the club decided to part their ways, and they were looking for two experienced guys to be interim managers, one for the West and one for the East. So they chose myself and Paul Dees. But at that time at the club, you know, Gary Boland was there, Jerry Britton was there, so it was a real learning curve for myself to be interim manager and also, try to manage these guys who have quite frankly got better careers than me. So, but we did that for 6 games, we did all right. And then myself and Gary Boland said, right, we'll go for the job together. We'll go for the full-time permanent job together. If he gets it, I'll be his assistant. And if I get it, he can be my assistant. So we interviewed very well. Really excited about the prospect of doing it. But the club said we've got one more person to interview. And we're going to be doing that on the Monday. It's a Sunday night we get interviewed. And that person turned out to be Michael O'Neill.
I remember.
So it's an absolute no-brainer. So he then came into the club, he kept me as his goalie coach. And I have to say, Michael O'Neill's the best manager that I've worked with. Yeah. His approach, his philosophy of the game, the way that he deals with individual players is absolutely different class.
Yeah. But see, Brecon, could you sense he would go on? I mean, what he'd done at Northern Ireland was unreal. And of course, he's at Stoke now, so it just shows you how good a calibre coach he is.
Aye, he's very, very astute. I can remember his first day when he came in the days, to make your wages up, you claimed the expenses, but you claimed an individual journey for Glasgow to Brecon. But there was 5 years in the motor, and everybody's claiming an individual journey. So that's how folk. There's a bit of skin, right? Don't get me wrong. But Mick came in and said that he says he's a financial advisor and he knows more about finance than he does about football. So if there's anything going on with regards to expenses, it stops now, and it stopped, and that was it. So he put his mark in it, and he's training and everything about him is just different class.
Yeah. You'd moved for the wee spell. Is it Stenhousemuir then?
Went to Stenny. Yeah, went to Stenny as well. And again, Campbell signed me. And, probably the worst decision ever made because we were playing East Fife at I call it Bayview. I think it's called New Bayview now. Anyway, we were playing there. We were nothing each at half time. And Big Bob McCulloch, I don't know if you know him, he played at Dunfermline and he's Cumnock legend. Yeah. Anyway, he's playing sweeper. Stevie Ferguson was playing that game as well. Anyway, we ended up getting beat 7-0. Don't know how we lost 7 goals, right, in the second half. But we lost 7 goals. And Campbell didn't come out of the dressing room, just walked up the stairs and just resigned there and then. Wow. He blames me for that. So he does. That's what he does. Right? He blamed me for getting the bag at Ayr, and he blamed me for getting the bag at Stenny, right? He's probably right, to be fair.
What do you do? See when the manager packs it in, and like at that moment, what do you think to yourself? What's going on?
I felt responsible. I felt responsible because 1, he was my mate, and 2, he's a good gaffer, and he didn't deserve it. For the players to throw in the towel like that. It was an absolute disgrace. Yeah. So that was our fault, wasn't it? It was ours. But there's been times when I've been at clubs when the gaffer's got the sack, I've been delighted, and I'm not going to lie, because first and foremost, you look at it from a selfish point of view. Because if you're not playing in the team, then the reason why you're not playing in the team is maybe because the gaffer doesn't rate you or whatever. So when that manager moves on, there's a kind of new slate a wee bit, a kind of clean slate. So you can take it from there. So it gives you a wee bit of kind of, a wee bit more motivation to kick on. Sometimes it worked for you, sometimes it didn't.
Yeah, absolutely. You went to St John's, didn't you, for a wee spell? Was Derek McInnes the manager there at that point?
Dale was a manager. Really, really good lads, really good friends with Derek. It was at his 50th birthday party 2 or 3 weeks ago there.
Yeah.
Carnage. That's all I'll say about that. No, there, I had a spell at East Stirling, which I hated. Absolutely hated it. It was the worst club. But my 15 clubs,
oh, really?
It was the worst club that I played for. Absolutely hated it. There was a couple of individuals there at that club at that time who, I better watch what I'm saying, who really weren't nice guys.
Yeah.
And I feel as, out of 15 clubs, as I say, I've probably played with hundreds and hundreds of players. Yeah. And I think there's probably 2 or 3 out of that group of players that I would say who I that I don't like.
Yeah.
Aye. And there was one or two at that club at that time, which I would say that about.
Yeah.
So again, I left there through mutual consent, and I went to Alloa as a player coach. And Big Nelly was a goalie, Big Craig Delson was a goalie, was it? No, it wasn't. It was can't remember who it was. But anyway, I was there as a coach anyway. And Dell phoned me. Big Xander Clark was a young boy at the time at St Johnstone.
Wow.
And their goalie, their reserve goalie at the time, got injured. Can't remember who it was. And Big Alan Main was the first team goalie.
Yeah.
And Dell said to me, look, we've got 13 games left of this championship, and I need somebody to just come in and just, if Alan Main gets injured, just to go in there and play. I says, well, aye, absolutely. So Alloa were great. I still trained with Alloa during the week, and then I went to McDermott on the Saturday, and I seen out the last 13 games of the season. And again, some of the players there was frightening. Now, I say about Michael O'Neill being the best manager, Derek McInnes is up there for me.
Oh, really?
Just with his man management style and how he gets on, and his assistant Tony Docherty is absolutely phenomenal as well with regards to his knowledge and how he delivers training and his attention to fine detail. So the two of them are a brilliant partnership, absolutely brilliant. And Dell, again, they got up into the Premier League that season. It was absolutely magic for them, and they deserved it because they were brilliant.
Was Jody Morris a player there?
Jody Morris was there as well. So he stayed in Brookfield. I was in Linwood at the time, and Dell was in Houston. So we used to travel through together. It was absolutely brilliant. We would stop off for a Saturday night at the wee Chinese in Linwood, and wee Jody Morris is away buying us all Chinese. It was kind of surreal. And at that time I had my goalkeeping academy as well, which I coached through it here. I ran it for 10 years and coached the goalies within Renfrewshire. And I used to run a summer camp, and during that summer camp I would tap into the contacts that I know, and I would get them down, get the guys down. Andy Gorham would come down, Big Kenny Arthur came, Stevie Naismith, all these boys came down, and they had a question and answer session with the kids. And wee Jody Morris come down, and he blew me away with some of these stories that he had. They were absolutely brilliant.
Yeah,
some boy.
It's weird. I seen Derek on what was he on Permere Sports last night for the Rangers game. It's incredible to think he's not a manager, because you're just used to him in the dugout somewhere. You know what I mean? So it's weird just seeing him no be a club at the moment.
It is, but I'm pretty sure that'll not be long.
Aye.
I think he'll get back into the game, probably depending on how individual teams' results go.
Aye.
I think Dale will be back in the game pretty soon, October, November time, probably.
Yeah, me too, absolutely. See, when the Sunday Mail approached to write a column, John, how did that come about?
Well, Big Jerry Britton used to do one in the Glasgow Herald.
Yeah.
Big Jerry's an intellectual, so his column was very well written, and it was very, very good.
Yeah.
But the Sunday Mail were looking for someone who had the same kind of experience and the same kind of longevity within the game, and put it into lower league terms, because at that time they had Rob McLean doing a column, they had Andy Walker, so they had the kind of Premier League kind of sewn up, and they were looking for someone of the lower leagues who could maybe write the column. And my mate Gordon Parks, who is he's a journalist at the Daily Record, really good lad. So he said to me, look, we've got this opportunity. You fancy it? I said, Parks, I don't even know how to turn a computer on. You mad? He says, I've not got a clue. He says, just try it. He says, it's anecdotal. Have a try at it, and then he can help me do it and structure it, etc. And I done it, and it was meant to be seasonal. It was only meant to be done for, I don't know, that's it was only meant to be done for maybe 2 or 3 seasons. That's the kind of life that these things have got. But I think about 8 years at it, and it was pretty successful. I think people generally enjoyed the read. It wasn't I'm telling you this, or my opinion, that, or whatever, you know, I wasn't talking about Celtic and Rangers. I was talking about anecdotes and just telling about stories about being in the dressing room. It was a cup of tea and a roll and sausage kind of read on a Sunday morning. And I think people appreciated that.
Yeah. Have you ever thought of maybe writing a book or anything about that, John, at all?
I have actually, I can remember sitting in Tenerife a few years ago and I got a phone call for the Sunday Mail calling me Andy. Hi, Andy, that's your contract. I went, no, I'm John. So I knew before Andy Walker, his column was getting done. I've never told Andy that story, actually. But I was sitting in Tenerife and I says, I think I'm going to read a book. I'm going to write a book. And I thought about it. 15 chapters, a club a chapter, you know. And I think I've probably got it. I've probably got it in my locker to do that. But it's just having the time to sit and do it. You know, I spoke to an editor who was at the Paisley Express at the time, and I says, "Look, what do you think? Is this pie in the sky?" He says, "Look, I'll not make you £1 million." He says, "But I definitely think you've got a book in you with your stories, because the combination of the columns that I'd written over the years, you know, you could amalgamate them into a book, and you know, and taking it from there." But I've never got around to doing it.
Aye, yeah, well, yeah. Certainly, it would be. Certainly, I think it's got legs in it. That's for sure.
Aye.
I was going to say as well. See, looking back in your career, John, we get a lot of goalies and they've got just crazy superstitions and all that. Were you one of those, or did you have anything that you had to do before a game?
Aye, I was very, very superstitious. There's a song in there, isn't there, Stevie Wonder? That's my karaoke song. Aye, from a Wednesday, I used to try and train and eat everything at the same time, right through to the Saturday. And then on the Saturday, I would do the exact same warm-up at the exact same time. I would put my left boot on before my right boot and my left glove on before my right glove. Weird, right? Absolute weird. But in your mind, I suppose, I mean, if you're a psychologist, folk will just say you're off your nut. You know, we're doing things like that. But that's the kind of things that you would do. If you played well on a Saturday, then try and stick to the routine. And hopefully it sees you through the next couple of games. I know there's weird superstitions with folk no washing their shin guards, ripping their boot. I mean, you look at Jack Grealish, his boots, right? You know what I mean? You pull them out the bin. But he's obviously got that kind of superstition that he can that keeps him going. And I know there's loads of players like that. Absolutely loads. Yeah,
and we touched on Isfan earlier. Is he the best player you played with John? Or is there any others up there?
Aye, Isfan. I was unfortunate that at that time there wasn't a lot of Premier first team games, but he's the best player without a shadow to probably ever play for Dunfermline and probably ever will be. That's no disrespect to any player that's played from Dunfermline. So, and I don't think anybody would be offended by saying that. But Charlie Nicholas is up there as well. You know, he was different class. Even though he was coming to his end of his career, he was up there. And I know folk would say, you know, Paul Lambert. But when I was at St Mirren, Paul Lambert wasn't the Paul Lambert who won the European Cup.
No, I know.
You know, he's a young boy at that, albeit a very, very good player. There was no doubt about that. But Paul Lambert left St Mirren to go to Motherwell and then kicked on. You know, so I didn't see the best of Paul Lambert when I was at St Mirren when I was a young boy. But obviously his career, you know, it speaks for itself.
See when you're I mind watching that Champions League final and you're seeing him in there against like Zidane and all that. It's crazy football sometimes, isn't it? Well,
Paul Lambert's for Linwood. No, he was a year above me in school. So I grew up in Linwood and he grew up in Linwood. And I can remember we used to play the five-a-sides. It was the wee, you know, wee gangs, the five-a-sides, and the Polish ran it. And I can remember Paul playing in it. And I can remember he used to pick me up when I was YTS at St Mirren because he's just stayed down the road from me, and he would pick me up in his Moz Audi and take me to this old banger of a car, and he would take me into Love Street and bring me back in it, you know. So he's for Linwood, a championship, you know, European Cup, and I'm for Linwood, a Janny's boy. So, so it was good to see our two careers went the same way, wasn't it?
I'm sure you pushed them on.
Absolutely.
So that leads us on. You said you're working with Kibble now. You've been there for about 20 years. You were saying
20 years. Yep. So when I get freed at Hamilton Accies, again, I was left in that dilemma. What am I going to do? I've never worked a day in my life because it was always full-time football. But I knew a couple of guys in there. Eric McQueen was in there. He was at St Mirren when I was there. And Big Gary Peebles, who's still there and doing very well. And I basically asked them, look, is there anything gone? You know, it seems to be that kind of sector. A lot of ex-players go into that sector, you know, to work with young people. And he says, look, I'll try and get you in. So Davy Naismith, who was one of the managers at that time, Stephen's dad, he interviewed me and got me in as a sessional worker. So from there, I was very, very fortunate in there because they then put me through I went into education. I went from care into education, and I was very fortunate that they put me through my qualifications and put me through my teaching degree. So I then was a qualified PE teacher from there, and then I got promoted a couple of times, and that's what I'm doing just now. So very, very good place to work. Really, really, you know, offer a great service for the young people who are there, both education and care. Yeah. So all good.
Yeah. Finally, would you see yourself joining a club again, John? Do you think getting back in the game?
Well, I've been asked a couple of times. I've been asked to, you know, go to various clubs as the goalie coach, and I would, but I enjoy my part-time gig at the moment, which is working for Opta. I do that on a Saturday, and I get to see most of the St Mirren games. Yeah. So that's absolutely brilliant. So I really enjoy doing that. It's a hard gig, but you know, it's very, very rewarding. And you're seeing your games. I mean, through lockdown there, you know, you felt really privileged that you could actually go and watch a game of football live and still get paid for it. So I love that gig. If that was to maybe, you know, be there, then if the opportunity for me to get back into coaching is, then I would take it.
Yeah. And how do you think St Mirren will get on this season? They're doing quite well under Jim Goodwin, aren't they? The
squad is very, very strong. I was talking to Lee Sharp, who's assistant manager. I was talking to him at Stennismuir the other week there. Yeah. And he quite rightly states that the squad is probably the strongest it's been since your 87s, your 88s, when there was loads of, you know, experienced players chatting to go and play for their countries. And St Mirren have got that now. So missed out on a goal last season for the top six, got to 2 semi-finals. People saying, well, that's a disappointment. But if you look at it, holistically, and you look at the bigger picture, then it's progress. Yeah. But, you know, so we need to kick on this season. And I'm pretty sure Jim Goodwin and Sharpie and the guys who are working behind the scenes, I'm pretty sure that will happen. Yeah. I think they're in for a good season. Well, it's been brilliant having you on, John. Thanks very much for coming on. I've really enjoyed it. So, no bother, Derek. Anytime. It was an absolute pleasure.